What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Dynasty Pod. Today we have got a great one for you. We're going to be going over the 2023 NFL Combine. I am Brendan, joined here by the wonderful Sam. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing good. Been looking at numbers all weekend, 40-yard dash times and hand sizes and vertical jumps.
Looking at
So we're
the
excited to break it
RAS
down for you
scores.
guys. Yeah, RAS scores and lots of numbers.
Yeah.
But like we said before, the combine, this just gives us an idea of a little bit, does what we see on tape match up with what we see in some of these testing? That's primarily what I'm looking for. I'm not going to be blowing up my rankings based on the combine, but if, somebody tests out of what I might expect, I'm going to move them up or down. So we're going to talk about that today, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what, Sam? It's the combine. It's that you could feel the draft coming
Oh,
closer, and
yeah.
it's more of a spectacle than really anything. It's a show.
It
These
definitely
rookies
is.
are putting on a show basically, and I was looking at it, sitting there. I was pretty much watching all the position groups and just doing my own personal little rankings on the non fantasy players, but I was getting real hyped
That's
and
fun.
excited. All of these prospects. Obviously, we didn't have some guys test, so we still got to wait. There's pro days coming up, so we'll have all that stuff too. But just getting closer and closer to the draft, and it just makes me more excited. We'll try and get a mock draft, a post-combine mock draft to you guys soon. But
Definitely.
for now, we've also got a bunch of news here, Sam. So
Yeah. Even
there's
stuff that broke today, right,
yeah,
right before we recorded.
a lot of stuff being broken since the combine wrapped up. So we're just gonna run through a couple of those things here. So I'll let you tee it off here with the news, Sam.
Sure. So we'll start with, so we're recording this on Monday, March 6th. So we had two huge breaking news alerts right before we got on. One being Derek Carr signing with the Saints for 4 years, $150 million deal, $100 million of that guaranteed. Now, I don't know, I think we can believe the guaranteed number. We don't know how much of that additional 50 million is going to be void years or anything like that.
Yeah.
But because 150 million sounds pretty rich for Derek Carr for 4 years, but we'll see. We don't know the details of that contract, but we knew that he was in Indy meeting with teams. We knew he met with the Jets before the combine. So looks like we kind of came back to the Saints. We knew the Saints were his first option. Brendan, how does this impact your view of the Saints for fantasy?
Yeah, so for the Saints, it's a little tough here. The clear cut player that you want to look at is Chris Olave, because he's their young piece. He's going to be a part of their future going forward, and you like the security because before Chris Olave was balling out, and he had Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston last year. So is Derek Carr a big upgrade to those guys? I mean, it's tough. He is an upgrade in my opinion. Whether it
Mm-hmm.
be, it's not a big leap for me. I think it's going to be a slight upgrade there, but it's going to be stability over the next couple of years. You know who the quarterback is going to be. You're not worried about them just cycling through awful quarterbacks year after year. So that's good for Olave, and
And
he's already shown he can play.
we know that Derek Carr loves to pick like one guy
Yeah,
and hyper target him.
yeah, and
It's like Darren Waller. It was Renfro when Waller was hurt. It was Devontae Adams last year. Like he's gonna pick one guy and hyper target him. So I think to me that's good news for Olave because he's really the only person there that Carr has to throw to.
yeah, and I mean when the news broke, I posted it on our Twitter. You could follow us, the Dynasty Pod at the Dynasty Pod FF, and what I was saying was that yeah, it's good for Olave, but I'm not in on Derek Carr because
Yeah,
Derek Carr
I
couldn't.
agree.
He was the quarterback 17 last year with arguably the best weapons of his career. Even
I was
though
gonna say
Waller and
16
Renfro
to
were
20
hurt,
range is what I would think he's gonna be again next
and
year.
we don't know what's going on with Michael Thomas. We don't know what's going on with Alvin Kamara. Jarvis Landry's not
Mm-hmm.
going to be there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's what, Chris Olave, and then you got Raheed Shaheed. You've got Jawan Johnson. You've got, who do they still have? Marquez Callaway, like a bunch of nobodies essentially. So it really is just going to
Yeah.
be Derek Carr hyper targeting Olave and just pure fantasy points by volume, albeit. But I mean, it's still going to be good for Olave. I don't want Carr at all. This doesn't move Carr for me. But
Maybe
maybe
Traquan Smith will finally have his
yeah,
breakout year. I doubt it. Yeah, I know for sure. I mean, and it's possible the Saints look at wide receiver or tight end in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I think they definitely are going to be looking for some kind of big-bodied pass catcher potentially.
yeah.
Um, you know, I could see them taking somebody like Cedric Tillman in the second, or even Michael Mayer if he dropped far enough. Um, but yeah, for now, even then, I don't know that I'd be really in on Derek Carr. So
Yeah, and I think the even bigger thing now is essentially the quarterback dominoes are all starting to fall.
exactly, yeah.
And
And so right after we saw Derek Carr sign, we saw the Seahawks go ahead and make a move with Geno Smith. So Geno Smith also signed 3 years, $105 million. I think you and I talked on previous podcasts that we thought this is about where he'd end up in that Ryan Tannehill range, about 35 mil a year. This is what the Giants are trying to get Daniel Jones to sign to. Um, maybe maybe this impacts negotiations with Daniel Jones now that they can point to Geno and say, look, like this guy signed for about what we're trying to sign you to. But either way, I think this is good for the Seahawks. Geno was pretty good last year. I think this is stability for DK Metcalf and
yep.
Tyler Lockett, which is what you want. That being said, I would not be surprised to see the Seahawks be a team that's interested in a guy we're going to talk about when we get into the combine,
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson to the Seahawks would be amazing for
I
them,
think
especially with Geno signed to that deal now.
I completely agree with you. That was the first thing I thought of is you've got Gino there who would absolutely be a great mentor. He's been in the league. He's just a all around vet. So I think Anthony Richardson, we'll talk about where we think he could fall in some of his better spots when we talk about him in the combine section. But yeah, completely agree with you.
So I'll run through some other rapid fire news. Maybe stop me if you think there's anything interesting here. There've been some franchise tag news. Evan Ingram was franchise tagged today, I think, officially.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs was tagged today as well. Those were things that we saw coming.
Yeah,
I think
both those teams you could still see possibility to draft
100%.
capital at that
I would not be
position this year.
surprised if the Jags still drafted a tight end.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders drafted a running back still. Tony Pollard also likely to get the tag unless they come to an agreement before March 15th. Those are kind of the big franchise tag news. Still waiting on the Giants. It's as well. If they can't sign Daniel Jones to a long-term deal, they're likely to put the tag on him. That's going to be a huge domino because if they franchise tag Daniel Jones, it's unlikely that Saquon stays.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep an eye on too in the coming weeks. Also, we've got some cut news that's been coming out. Fournette likely to be cut. Kenny G, Carson Wentz were cut. And then I think we've also got rumors of Zeke and Joe Mixon being cut. So
Yeah.
these are guys that now I'll say for Fournette and Mixon, I wouldn't be surprised. Those guys will end up on other teams if they get cut. So I'm not tanking their fantasy value. If they're cut, Zeke, I think the league consensus is that his legs are pretty dead. So he might come in some kind of goal line type role. But out of those three guys, I'd be most concerned about Zeke.
Yeah, and I think with Tony Pollard getting tagged, I saw a tweet that, with the tag being so high, about 12% of their entire salary cap would be on the running backs. So I think you could definitely see a possibility of Zeke getting cut there just for them to save some cap and look to go maybe with a running back later in this draft because it's so deep.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Yeah, I mean that's it for the real news. There's been some rumors and stuff going around, obviously at the combine. We also get some news just from hearing some of these GMs speak. Some big things that we heard from the combine. For example, I think there had been a lot of T. Higgins trade rumors in
Yeah.
this offseason, but uh, Duke Tobin seemed to be pretty firm in that T. Higgins will not be traded.
Yeah.
So, I think that was something that we were curious about for sure. Also, obviously, there's been a ton of chatter around trades for the number one pick. Rumors that uh, Ryan Poles already has packages together with teams. Rumors that the pick might be moved as early as the end of this week. Rumors that he's going to get a 24 first and a 25 first, as well as the 23 first that he trades with, that he swaps.
Hmm.
Now, how much of this do you think is showboating, smoke screening, uh, trying to drum up interest from Ryan Poles, and how much do you think is legit?
Yeah, so I think it's tough, and we can kind of lead this into the beginning of our combine talk with the
Mm-hmm.
quarterbacks because when you look, I think the quarterbacks as a whole had a really good weekend at the combine. So whereas you might think, okay, now that there's a couple quarterbacks that people are more comfortable with, the price has gone down for the one. I think it's actually gone up because you want to go get your guy now. You
Yeah, I
know,
think
every
teams are
team
going to
has
find
got their
somebody
guy.
they love. Yeah.
Yeah. So whether that be now the Panthers really falling in love and trying to get to that spot, the one thing that was pretty much made very clear at this point and has been squashed, there's definitely no chance. It seems like that they're going to be drafting a quarterback at one and trading
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields. So there, it seems almost completely 100% they're going to be sticking with Fields in Chicago. Um, so it's all going to be about how far are they willing to move down because they can get a lot more picks if they trade with Carolina, but are they going to risk losing one of those elite defensive players at the top of the draft like a Will Anderson or even a Jalen Carter if his off the field stuff gets cleared up?
Based on what I've been hearing, my feeling is that they are going to trade down to one of the lower teams, one of like 9 through 12 or 8 through 12 potentially.
Yeah,
Maybe you throw the Falcons in there as well. Um, just because I think that he wants a bigger war chest of picks than he might get from than Indy or the Texans might be willing to give up. Now, I've also heard it thrown out that they might trade down to the Texans at 2 and then
trade
trade from
again.
2 as well, and then so they can accumulate 2 firsts that way. Um, but obviously, as a Texans fan, I would prefer that not to happen. I've heard I think the most the Texans would do would be 2 and 33 and give the Bears back that early second that they lost with the Chase Claypool deal.
Yeah,
Um, I think that's probably the max the Texans would be willing to spend. So, you know, just depends if they are convinced that they have their guy. But speaking of these teams finding their guys, let's go ahead and jump into the quarterbacks because I think
yeah,
that really influences these decisions is what we saw at the combine from these quarterbacks.
yeah.
Um,
Let's
now,
let's
yeah,
start with the
you go
guy
ahead.
here that we didn't really see too much of, but he was one of the bigger storylines heading into the combine, and that's Bryce Young and how he measured. So we've got the measurement on Bryce Young. He's 5'10", 204 pounds. This is where a lot of people thought he was going to come in maybe high 180s, low 190s. He comes in at 204. Now, Sam, obviously, this is all fluff weight, right?
Oh
He's not going to be
yeah,
playing at 204. There's a reason he didn't do anything at the combine. He's going to be playing at, in my opinion, that low 190, high 180s. But
right.
it's the fact that he didn't come in and measure in that 180s in the 5'10. That would be too
It's
little
tough
for
because
him.
we know he's manipulating the system here. He just wants to put a number on the board.
Yeah.
Um, he weighed in at almost exactly the same measurements as Kyler Murray.
Hmm.
That was clearly what his goal was, to measure in near Kyler Murray's size. I agree. At the Alabama Pro Day, he's probably going to be 190 and he's not going to weigh in, but he'll throw, So he's going
Yeah.
to weigh in the combine, not throw at the Alabama Pro Day, and not weigh in. And maybe that'll influence people, but at the end of the day, he's small. And NFL teams know he's small, and he is historically small, and And honestly, I mean, we're going to talk a lot today just about how players have changed in our ranks. I still have him number one, but it's very, very close between him and Stroud for me now. And I'm starting to get to where I think I'm going to put Stroud over Bryce Young, just because
Hmm.
I'm concerned
Yeah.
about the size. And if we look at Kyler Murray, I think Kyler Murray's arm is more electric. I think Kyler Murray's movement is more dynamic. I don't know that Kyler Murray has the same creativity or, you know, that or just like that gamer mentality that Bryce
Well,
Young shows from time to time.
Kyler
But
Murray definitely has a gamer mentality because he plays a lot of Call of Duty
yeah,
every
yeah,
day.
yeah. The wrong game though.
Yeah, wrong game, wrong game, wrong game.
That's what I mean. There's a little bit of that lack of commitment and work ethic
Yeah.
from Kyler. That's definitely not there with Bryce Young. But I'm concerned. Yeah, as somebody who's very invested in who the best of these top quarterbacks are going to be, because the Texans are interested in one of them. I mean, yeah, I'm concerned about the size. And then what we saw from CJ Stroud to me was everything that you wanted to see. I thought his podium was incredibly confident. I thought that his throws he showed everything that we thought in terms of accuracy. And I thought he gave good explanations for why the mobility was not there. Just saying that he wanted to work on being a pocket passer, wanted to work on his accuracy. But obviously he had it in the tool belt. We saw it in the Georgia game. So, to me, that's kind of why I want the Texans to sit it too, because these guys to me are getting to be pretty even between Bryce Young and Stroud.
Yeah. And so for me, going into the combine, I already had Stroud ahead. He was my QB1, still is my QB1. I do have Bryce Young moving. For now, it's pretty much flip-flop for me. On this next guy, let's talk about the flip side of the coin here. Anthony Richardson, who I have moved
Mm-hmm.
into my 2, but it's really, I got to go back and watch more of these guys and kind of try and weigh out which one I want at my 2 and 3. And
Sure.
it could move a lot back and forth up until the draft. But I mean, Anthony Richardson, oh my God, Sam, this guy came into the combine, and we all thought he was going to test really well, but I mean, historic levels of testing
Yeah, I
from
mean
Anthony
he's
Richardson.
the most athletic quarterback to have ever tested, right?
Yeah,
He got a 10 RAS score, which means that he, compared to the athleticism of any other tested quarterback, is the most athletic. So
yeah. So Anthony Richardson comes in at 6'4", 240 pounds, 40-yard dash, 4.43 record for quarterbacks.
yeah, faster than most of these receivers
Yeah,
at 244.
40.5 vertical jump record for quarterbacks, 10.9 broad jump record for quarterbacks. I mean, it's just, unbelievable. And
Yeah,
the reason why this is kind of moved for me, I mean, when you go into the combine and you do this, you clearly train for the combine. These guys, they're training. They know it's a show. They know that this can
right,
help boost their
right.
stock if they look unbelievable. And it's just all repetition. And if you can do this, and he's probably working with all these coaches and stuff to help him get better at these individual drills, the broad jumps, the verts, the 40-yard dash. It's repetition and coaching. And if you can be coachable, then with a guy like Anthony Richardson, he goes into the league, he gets good coaching, he could be a top 5 player. And I mean, this is historical. I mean, like, if you look, he's a better athlete than Cam Newton just by historical testing. So you're telling me that a guy who is, listen, Cam Newton, he fell off, but for 4 or 5 years, Cam Newton was a top 5 quarterback at least fantasy wise. So I'm looking for fantasy strictly here. You could weigh in for Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, better NFL quarterback, but for fantasy, Anthony Richardson could be the quarterback one in 2-3 years. Whereas I don't see Bryce Young being the quarterback one. Anthony Richardson could be a dominant, the QB1 kind of guy.
Yeah, I'll say, I was a little bit, I kind of have a little bit of a different view on Anthony Richardson. So, he's still at my 3. To me, I didn't see anything I didn't expect at the combine. Obviously, it was historic, so that's great, but I think we all expected him to test extremely well. Like that was what we all thought he would do. We thought that he would be able to sling these 60-yard passes, with the arm strength, of somebody like Josh Allen. That was expected. But to me, the accuracy was very concerning when he was throwing out routes and more simple, type of QB passes. I thought it looked pretty bad. And, the comparisons to like Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson, and they're saying, hey, like this guy could be that. Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson were the best players in college football when they were in college. And Cam Newton, you might say, oh, well, he had nobody on his team. I'm an Auburn fan. Cam Newton had nobody on that team. That team was Cam Newton and nobody else, and he dragged that team to a national championship. Anthony Richardson was on a bad Florida team, and they stayed bad. You didn't see any appreciable impact from him playing on that team. And so, the comps to Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson, to me, are a bit of a stretch. I think what people are hoping is that it's more that comp to Josh Allen, right? Somebody who was on a Wyoming team. He showed impressive tools, but didn't really impress in terms of his performance on the team or leading the team to any kind of championship or anything. And he's got his stats in college are almost identical, and you can say for Anthony Richardson too, he's pretty new to the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he moved to quarterback really in college. So yeah, I think the upside's absolutely there. I just want to give a little bit of, balance that out with, that to me, there is making that Cam Newton comparison to me is a big stretch, because Cam Newton was absolutely dominant, in college, and it was easy to make that translation to the NFL. But it certainly is, exciting to see these numbers, and if he goes to the right situation, I completely agree. He has that top 5 potential that some of these other guys don't.
Yeah, and that was the only thing I was gonna say is that this was his first year starting, so he really didn't. Whereas Lamar and Cam, they kind of got more experience to play, but we don't really know what he could have been if he started earlier and kind of transitioned better into college, but. But I think just in terms,
it's tough though, because
prospect, I would be willing to say that you're not an idiot if you spend the 101. At this point, to me, I think it's a very high upside pick if you need a quarterback. I think it's way more in the realm of possibility now than it was pre-combine.
But also, the only 2 quarterbacks with under 55% accuracy who've ever been drafted in the NFL are Christian Hackenberg and Trace McSorley.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to balance that out. There's a huge risk. I would not spend the 101 on Anthony Richardson. I think there's too much risk.
Yeah.
I would take Bijan.
Yeah, we will talk about Bijan in a little bit. But let's just talk Will Levis real quick. I think he and then, obviously, we already passed over C.J. Stroud. We'll talk about C.J. Stroud first. I think he looked by far and away the best passer. I don't think he even really...
We talked about him a little bit, but you didn't get a chance, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think he just looked really clean, crisp. I don't think he even missed a single throw. I think one or two guys dropped his passes, but just all around, I think a great day for Stroud. Will Levis, I think, also looked pretty good. He went out there with a mission. He had he said in one of the interviews, he said, I got a cannon, I'm going to go out and prove it. So, he did that. I think he looked pretty good, but... Still that quarterback 4 for me. I don't think he comes close to the top 3.
Just in terms of our consensus rankings, pretty much the same as before, but Stroud has moved up to number 1 in our consensus ranks. I think that matches kind of what we've seen with Bryce Young at 2, Richardson at 3, and then kind of have a teardrop to Levis and Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
And really those are the only 5 guys that we're thinking about. So
yeah, and viewing...
We might have our sleepers here and there, but...
Yeah, some of the sleepers that I was kind of looking at wasn't really that impressive by anyone, outside of the top 4 guys at the Combine. So...
Sleepers at quarterback isn't really a thing.
Yeah.
I guess Brock Purdy, but nobody was going to pick Brock Purdy as their sleeper, I don't think.
Yeah,
maybe.
Exactly.
What do we want to do next?
Well, so we can talk about running backs here quickly because I think for me, running backs underwhelmed a little bit. I think we kind of saw what we expected from the top guys, and then we had a lot of guys that didn't even test to begin with. So we could talk. Let's talk Bijan and Jameer Gibbs. I think Bijan all around.
Yeah, let's talk about those two, and then we can just talk about the guys that rose fell the most for both of us.
Yeah. So Bijan looked very clean, sharp. Looked like clear cut number one running back. Couldn't do anything wrong out there on the field. He came in with a 4.45, I believe.
Yeah, he wasn't. I don't think he was the best in any drill, but just consistently great in every drill, which is what we expect from Bijan. He's not going to be the best at one thing. He's just going to be the second best at everything.
Yeah. And then
from an athleticism standpoint, from a running back standpoint, I'd say he's the best at a number of things.
Yeah. And then Jameer Gibbs came in, really gave a run for his money with Devin Achane in the 40. He posted a 4.36.
Incredibly fast.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it shows on the field. There was no question to me about the speed, the breakaway speed.
And he did come in a little light as well. I think he might have ran a little lighter to get a fast 40 speed. He ran at 199. Mm-hmm. So, I think he might have come in a little. I think Jameer Gibbs was like, I'm gonna train for the 40 since college football ended and the combine started.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything I think about Jameer Gibbs. Just proved what we saw, which is what we're looking for, right? We want to see what we saw on tape matched up on the field at the combine. And really, for me, again, like I said this at the beginning, I'm looking for something that is, maybe less than my expectations. To me, that was Devon Achane. I know he ran a 4.32. But honestly, for Achane, at his size, he needed to run in the 4.2s for me.
Yeah. And
I know that is that seems like such a crazy ask because 4.2s is so fast. But it's this guy's tiny. He's what, 5'10", 188 or something like that? I mean.
Yeah,
when. It might have been shorter than 5'10".
Yeah,
5'8", 5'9". 5'9".
The exact. I believe it was 5'9". But yeah, for Achane, when you've got a guy that.
I'll pull up the RASC.
Yeah, he came in at 5'8.5", is what he came in. So pretty short. 5'8.5", 188.
And he looked tiny out there.
Yeah, it's tough because that's his thing. He's not a big guy. He's the shifty guy. He's gonna win with those home run plays. That's his thing. And at a 4.32, it's the way you're saying it. If he had that,
it's very good. 4.32 is a 9.97 on the RASC scale.
It's unbelievable.
But it's the thing about Achane was this guy's faster than anybody we've seen in 10 years or something. And I wanted a 10. I wanted a 4.28 or something. Honestly. So.
Yeah. It's just getting harder for me to envision Devin Achane coming in and being a consistent fantasy piece that you can use week in and week out.
Yeah, he dropped in my rankings from I think I had him at 6, dropped him to 8. Looks like you dropped him from
8 to 10.
8 to 10. So we both dropped him a couple spots.
Yeah.
I think both of us just recognizing that his profile's probably not going to be super successful in fantasy. Maybe a gadget guy, like a Tavon Austin or something.
Yeah.
That gets you some points every now and then. Who else for you, Brendan, was a big mover?
Well, we can also talk about another guy that looked really crisp.
Sure.
And he moved up.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about that for
Zach Charbonnet, who he came in, he ran a 4.53 official, which for his size, 6 foot 214, that's pretty good. I'll take a 2.53 for him. And just all of the on the field drills, his footwork looks super clean. For a bigger guy to have that light footwork, I really like that. He moved from both of our fives to three, so he
Yeah,
is the
I was gonna
consensus
say
three.
he's who I was gonna bring up as a big mover because he
Yeah,
moved up 2 spots for me.
yeah. So we both really like what we've seen out of Charbonnet. We both think that he can be that bell cow back for a team that will draft him somewhere in the second. I feel like that's a almost sure and locked spot for him, maybe top of the third if he slips out of the second, but I really do view him as a second round
Yeah.
prospect, and he'll go to somewhere that'll utilize him as the bell cow back. So
Put up a 9.42 RAS score. I mean, which was fourth best out of all the running backs. I thought that was really impressive. So
yeah,
very impressive testing. Only behind uh, Bijan, Chase Brown, and Deneric Prince. I will say that was my other big riser was Chase Brown.
yeah,
Though.
mm-hmm.
No, I think that I really liked Chase Brown as a prospect, watching college football, seeing his stats, looking at the film, but then dropped him a lot after the Senior Bowl due to a pretty poor performance at the Senior Bowl. But to me, this testing just kind of reset it back at maybe where I would have had him before that happened. He tested extremely well, posted a RAS score of 975, which was just under Bijan.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I moved him up from let's see, from 9 to 7. So I moved him up 2 spots.
he was another guy that rose for me about 2 spots from 10 to 8. So kind of flipping there with A Chain for me.
Mm-hmm.
Ran a 4.43,
Yeah, exactly.
which is really impressive. That's really good. He's 5'9.5", 209, so he's really good size, good speed. So this is a guy that, I think if he goes to the right spot, he could be a really dangerous sleeper. Because I still don't think he's going to get that hype. So I think you'll probably be able to try and get him in the back of the second if he doesn't go too early in the actual draft. So this could be a guy to watch out for later in your drafts, because I think people aren't going to be as hyped on him as they should be moving forward. But I completely agree. Just Chase Brown, also Sidney Brown, his brother, who is the safety. Both of them out of Illinois. Both of them had a
Wow.
great weekend. So Sidney Brown kind of tested off the charts for safeties too. So good little running or brother tandem there, testing at the combine.
Then I want to ask one question about the last guy in our top tier, Tank Bigsby. Did his testing concern you at all? So he posted a 781 RAS score, ran a 4.56 40, which is average.
Yeah.
32.5 vertical, which is pretty bad. Overall, very average athletic testing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wasn't expecting Tank Bigsby to come in and kind of light up the combine. I didn't think that was really his strength. It's really the physicality of his game that he plays at. I don't think he looked particularly bad in any of the drills, which is the one thing I was kind of really just hoping he wouldn't do is, look bad out there. So he looked fine. He didn't look bad, didn't look great, just pretty average. But yeah, I would have liked to see maybe like a 4.52 somewhere like Charbonnet, because he's a little bit lighter. But it's not the end of the world. I still really like Bigsby. It's one of our guys. I'm still gonna be toting him. He moved down to both of our fours when we kicked Charbonnet up. So
Yeah. I'd say he tested pretty similar to somebody like Dameon Pierce. And I think that he is probably a pretty similar player to Dameon Pierce in the NFL as well. And we saw Dameon Pierce be extremely successful last year with a 709 RAS score, much lower than Tank Bigsby. So, yeah. So, obviously, yeah, not something either of us are super concerned about. Is there anybody else on here that you wanted to talk about, or I can run through the tiers? I mean,
yeah. So
there's some.
only other guy that I had that moved a couple spots up was Keaton Mitchell. Looked really good to me.
Yeah.
He ran I believe it was a 4.36 or a 4.38. I'll pull that up. But just a guy that looked pretty clean in every single drill. I thought he looked really good. And this is a guy who is smaller, like Devin A. Chain, 5'8", 179 for Keaton Mitchell. But
Five
on
seven, 5'7", 5'7" and 7'10", 5077.
yeah,
But
so
almost 5'8", not quite 5'8".
yeah, for me, I think he plays with more of a physicality on tape than Devin A. Chain, which is why I'm not as worried. So he's I believe it's my number 9 player, or he's my 7 right now. Probably gonna swap Chase Brown out with him, so move him back a spot and move Chase Brown up. But yeah, I think he just plays with more of a physicality that I'm a little less worried about than Devin A. Chain, but just another kind
Sure.
of shiftier guy in that back tier that if you want to run through our tiers.
Yeah, I will. And obviously, there was a lot of these guys that we're going to talk about that didn't test at the combine. People that I think both of us really wanted to see, like Zach Evans. I really wanted to see how fast he was.
Yeah.
Sean Tucker really wanted to see how fast he was. So it's a little bit tough for us to evaluate those guys, but we'll get some more info on their pro day. Abanikanda as well. Would have loved to see him run.
And actually,
But we'll get some more info there.
2 more guys real quick.
Sure.
Roshan Johnson, one of your guys that you really liked. I thought
Yeah,
he
I
actually
do.
looked pretty good. Came in at a 4.58, which is a little bit. It's not bad for his 6'2", 219. But
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Looked really clean in the drills. And then Kenny McIntosh came in and he ran pretty poorly. He ran a 4.62.
Yeah, I was
so,
going to mention him in the tiers just because I think he's dropped from that second tier for us to
Yeah.
the third tier.
Yeah.
Just because I think for what he does as a kind of dynamic pass catching back, he needed to be a lot faster than he was. But I'll run through it. Yeah, so I mean, just to give you guys an idea of where our rankings stand post combine, we still have Bijan and Gibbs 1, 2. And then, like we said, Charbonnet has moved up to 3, and then Bigsby down to 4. But that's our top tier. Those are kind of our guys that I think Brendan and I are most confident on.
Yeah.
And then we have a tier drop. So tier 2, pretty big tier that just shows a little bit of the depth of this class. Zach Evans, Chase Brown, Abanikanda, Roshan Johnson, Sean Tucker, Devon A. Chain, and Kendry Miller. So that's that second tier. And then we have this last tier for me is just kind of these like a few toolsy, exciting, like sleeper type running backs that I'm gonna try to pick maybe back a third round. That's Keaton Mitchell, Ty Spears, who we didn't talk a lot about, but I think he really rose for me just kind of honestly just doing a little bit more film evaluation and research after our initial rankings, and then Kenny McIntosh there at the back of it. Yeah, so I mean, I think those are the kind of the guys that between the two of us that we are interested in looking at in drafts.
Yeah,
Big class though. I mean, that's like 14 guys, whereas the receivers we're about to talk about really only 11 guys. So
did the officially measured 5'5" Deuce Vaughn rise in your rankings at all, Sam?
I think he stayed. Let me see. I think he dropped 3 spots. And not because it changed my expectations, but because I jumped up guys like Spears and Keaton Mitchell, and I think I ranked Abanikanda higher than I had before. So I put some guys above him. Yeah.
All right, let's move on here to the receivers, where I think we had some pretty good guys shine here. And I know you'll probably want to talk about Jackson Smith and Jigba, who didn't run a 40, but he had himself a day. If you want to pull up the RAS score for him, his 3 cones, and so Jackson Smith and Jigba had himself a good day. He looked really good in terms of catching and just route running. Looked very polished, clean, as to be expected. Just a solid.
Yeah, I mean,
player.
You showed exactly what we wanted to see. Yeah, I agree. When he ran through the gauntlet, just incredibly smooth catching the ball. Shuttle, he ran a 3.93 shuttle, which is a 9.92, and a 6.573 cone, which is a 9.87. So just best of the class as for shuttle and 3 cone. Though I think Darnell Washington wasn't far behind on that with his short shuttle scores, which is just incredible to me. Did you know Darnell Washington posted the 3rd highest short shuttle score at the combine
I heard he posted well. I didn't know it was the third highest. That is
out of anybody at the
absolutely
combine, the third
unbelievable.
best short shuttle score.
That's, I mean, that he's just a freak, man. That's
Which is like not the opposite of what you'd expect at his size. But anyway, so
yeah,
yeah, so I mean, that's what you wanted to see from a dynamic slot type guy. So I think really just confirmed expectations about Jackson Smith and Jigba and confirmed his health. He didn't run the 40 because he's not fast. Like if he had run the 40, it would have been slow. He's agile. He doesn't have that long speed. That's why, to me, he's a primary slot guy. I know some people think he can play on the outside, but I think that would really be a mistake or a misuse of Jackson Smith and Jigba's talents. So he's still one for me. Yeah, I don't know. Did anybody change in your rankings in that top tier of wide receivers?
yeah. So not really too much shaking out. I've still got my Addison didn't test particularly well. I'm not too worried about that. I think it's just kind of
His skill is route running, and
yeah,
there's no athletic test for route running ability.
yeah. So
That's his best talent.
I'm not worried about it. For Addison, still my one. Zay Flowers tested pretty well. He's my two still. So I've gotten Jigba at 3. I did move Jalen Hyatt down 1, and I moved Quentin Johnston up 1. So that's just the shift there. Really would have liked to see Quentin Johnston run the 40. But after he posted like a crazy vertical and broad jump, he kind of just said nope, and then just did some of the routes. Didn't look as clean as some of the receivers during the on the field drills. I think he had 1 or 2 drops, but yeah. So that tier there for us, I think, is kind of aligning a little bit
Yeah.
more. But
Yeah, I thought Quentin Johnston looked good still. I saw him at 2. I think he did show some. I think everybody was concerned about body catching. I thought I saw some great like high point hands catches when he was running routes. Now, obviously that's with no DBs chasing him and not in a real game. So what can you really say? As far as movement for me, I actually also moved Jalen Hyatt down. I think that's because both of us probably expected him to be a little bit faster than he was.
yeah, but it's
That's
still
why
not.
I
It's
moved
not
him
the end of
down.
the world for me.
It's not slow. Still,
No,
and like,
4.41.
and it's like if you watch the tape, he's fast.
Yeah.
It's like maybe he can't run a 40-yard dash. Maybe he's not a track athlete, but
Yeah.
like watch the tape. So I'm not too concerned with Hyatt. But I did move him down and move Zay Flowers up because Zay Flowers posted a pretty incredible RAS score. So
Yeah.
But as far as that top tier, I mean, I think we're pretty locked in, along with really the rest of the community, with having
Those
Smith and
top
Jigba,
5.
Addison, Johnston, Zay Flowers, and Jalen Hyatt in that top tier.
Yeah.
I think those are all the guys that will go in the first round.
Yeah, and then I think these next 2 tiers of guys, I think pretty much all of them tested fairly well. Maybe
Yeah.
Cedric Tillman not as much. He didn't kind of blow
He
anything out
posted
of
a
the
great
water.
score, but I think
Yeah.
mostly based on his size and not necessarily based on testing.
Yeah. Yeah. So Cedric Tillman did pretty good. Marvin Mims I thought looked great.
Absolutely.
I want to pull up his RAS score here.
I love that for us as big Marvin Mims fans, to see him test well.
Yeah. So Marvin
That's like
Mims,
that's one where we stuck our necks out a little bit. So
yeah, I think 914 RAS. He came in at almost 5'11", 183, 39.5 inch vert, really good. 10.9 broad jump, really good. His 40-yard dash was 4.38, which is great. I was just hoping for like a low 4.4, and he kind of blew that out of the water right away. And he didn't even run again, so he could have possibly gotten a faster time. But I think he pretty much knew that was his high end, so he didn't really go again to test it. But
yeah,
but yeah, just overall a really good tester for him. Looked good during the drills too. I think he was a guy that you could just tell when he was out there running for the quarterbacks to throw. He just looked really good. So Marvin Mims had himself a day. Josh Downs is a guy that rose up a lot for you.
Yeah, I bumped Downs up a couple spots and bumped Tillman down a couple spots just because I think Tillman, I saw what I expected, but Downs, I think we talked about the fact that even though he's small, this guy has a massive catch radius. He posted, I think, the best vertical jump out of all of the wide receivers that tested. Um, I don't know that for sure, but I know
Yeah, I've got it here.
I know his vertical was very good, which to me that this just confirmed that this guy is somebody who, let's see, I posted a 903 relative athletic score for his vert with a 38.5-inch vertical, 1011 broad jump for a 9.68 score. So, and even though he ran a 4.4840, his 10-yard split of 149 is very fast. So I mean, this is a guy who's very fast off the line, and has that jumping ability to get a huge catch radius. Obviously, he's pretty small at 5'9", 171, but who's not small in this class? So I moved him up to my 6 just because I think we've seen it in his college production. I saw it in the testing. I'm willing to bet that if this guy lands in a good spot, he's going to be a really great, potentially a top. I think this, out of all the guys who we make these Tyler Lockett comparisons, because I don't know about you, but every single one of these short receivers is being compared to he'll be Tyler Lockett. This guy will be Tyler Lockett. To me, Josh Downs is the one who can be Tyler Lockett the most out of any of them. So
yeah, overall,
that's why I moved him up.
I like Josh Downs. I think just in terms of me being worried that he's just going to be that slot guy who maybe won't contribute to fantasy as much. I think he's just
totally
incredibly good contested catch guy. I'm less worried about drafting him. No movement for me in my rankings, just because the guys that I really like tested really well and kind of proved to me why I had them up there. One of those guys being Jonathan Mingo had himself a really good day, and we've talked about it.
Yeah.
You're worried about the capital.
And I moved him. I had him unranked, and I moved him up to my number 11. So
yeah. So this is a guy, a 989 RAS score.
Incredible.
6'2", 220 pounds, ran a 4.46, which is really good. He got a 39.5-inch vert, 10.9 broad jump. So just really good testing. Looked clean on the on the field drills. This is one of the bigger receivers in this class, so he's kind of also just that unicorn type player among this draft class, where it's a lot of shorter, more slender guys. He kind of already sticks out there. So if this boosts his draft capital up like I'm projecting it to, if he can get into the third round now as a receiver, I'm loving that. And I think we could see a really good player come out of Jonathan Mingo. So
yeah, and I need to go watch some tape. I could see myself jumping him even above Rashee Rice, who did test well, but obviously had kind of those Senior Bowl concerns. And Jonathan Mingo might sneak into the back end of our tier 2 potentially, if I really like his tape. So I think he's definitely, especially, finding those one or two guys that are actually plus 6 feet in this class, I feel like those guys are going to get capital just because there's so many teams that don't draft people under 6 feet, like the Packers, I don't think the Packers, as a rule, draft anybody under 6 foot. So,
I think you're right.
No, I am right. Yeah, I know it is. But yeah, so that's, so our second tier was Tillman, Mims, Downs, but then Mingo heads our third tier, and then we've also got Rashee Rice in there. We've talked a lot about Rashee Rice. I think to me, just his testing kind of backed up that he has that athleticism you see on tape. And then this is a guy you had pretty high, I think, even before Andre Yosibis.
Yeah, Andre
he posted
Yosibis,
some great numbers as well.
Yeah,
But to me, those are the 3 6 foot plus guys that I'm interested in looking at. Well, and there's another one who you hate, but
yeah,
Xavier Hutchinson.
Well, that's one of the guys that didn't particularly. He kind of affirmed
he didn't test well. Yeah.
Average, very average. I thought for Xavier Hutchinson, who we were talking about, is when I looked at him, I didn't see anything, especially tested fairly, I think, just mediocre across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But Andre Osavez, another guy that just popped 992 Raz, just a 443 40-yard dash for him being 6'3". I'm trying to pull up the his weight to know what it is here. 205, so a little bit lighter than a guy like Mingo, but still just really clean route runner. Just, I think the big thing is the talent, like the talent level he played against at Princeton. Is that
That's my
the reason
concern.
why? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my concern.
So I think just overall a really good prospect with just that little bit of doubt in your mind of is he? And we'll talk about him more, in a little bit of a deeper breakdown when we go over our sleepers, because this is one of those
Sure.
guys that I love. But and then we got a couple more guys here in this back end tier.
Yeah, kind of our bottom tier. Yeah.
Yeah, Tyler
Scott. I thought he had to. I expected him to run a lot faster than he did.
Yeah,
So I actually dropped him down.
yeah, I agree. I still think he's a decent player. This is kind of where the receivers kind of start to bottom out for me at this point, where I'm not as interested. I think these later
And
guys.
surprisingly, this bottom tier now includes a guy who was maybe in our second tier pre-combine.
Yeah, so I think we should definitely talk about him. It's Keishawn Butte fell hard for both of us. He was my 6, your 9, and I put him at 6. Really kind of disregarding the maturity questions and about him, and it was just purely based off the talent. And it's so tough when you have a guy that comes in and it just seemed like he didn't care, which is the big thing. He didn't care about trying to test well. And listen, testing isn't everything.
Also wasn't as big as I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5'11", 195. I thought he was going to be over 6 feet.
Yeah, so it's just when you already have the maturity stuff, and he comes in and he doesn't take this seriously, it feels weird. It's I just don't know where the NFL is going to value him. Is this going to drop his stock a lot? Is he going to go in the 3rd round, 5th round, 6th round? It's just, I still think he's a pretty good player. He's got that talent, but it's just going to be wasted talent on someone who doesn't really care about playing football. So it's a guy that
he's pretty much
here.
Off my board at this point.
I'm not gonna.
I can't see myself taking him.
I'm not gonna spend capital on him at this point. There are guys that I like better, who albeit riskier maybe with a guy like Raheem Jarrett. I think Raheem Jarrett's another guy that came out and tested fairly well at the combine, but he's just a guy I like better. He's had, not this year, he wasn't that great, but 2 years ago looked fairly decent, and just a top recruit coming out of high school. So I'd much rather take a shot on Raheem Jarrett than a guy like
Yeah, I think both of us have a sleeper in this bottom tier. Jarrett for you, Hutchinson for me, that we're going to take before we take Butte, which is crazy to say that I would take Xavier Hutchinson over Keishawn Butte, but I'm ranked well above Butte at this point. So, yeah. Probably one of the only RAS scores in the red out of the guys that we're going to talk about with Keishawn Butte.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Jaden Reed is the last guy here in this tier for us. I think he's just
Yes, that's right.
a fairly decent player. And then we got a couple guys. I think Tank Dell might be the only one we want to talk about. He kind of fell for me.
Sure.
Tested.
I think we had him maybe in that second to third tier as well, and he's really kind of out of our tiers, period, at this point. I mean, I'm not touching him, Tank Dell, at this point.
He came in. I want to get his official.
He came in extremely small and not fast.
Yeah,
not fast enough, at least.
So he came in at 5'8", 165, and he ran a 4.49. That's bad.
Good grief.
That's
lower
bad.
than Anthony Richardson at 5'8".
I mean,
my goodness.
You've got
165.
What is it? 100, about 100 less pounds on Darnell Washington. And what did Darnell run? A 4.6.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So you're
not even that much slower.
You're a 10th
On a
faster
good day, he
than.
might win a race with Tank Dell.
So it's just to me, this is a guy
It is
that's too
wild to
small.
imagine.
He's way too small for me. He has that same problem where he's got the competition that he played against was a little bit lower at Houston. So I wasn't the highest on Tank Dell. I know a lot of people were. To begin with, I wasn't that crazy about him. This kind of just completely steers me away from him. So,
Yep.
and then I think that's pretty much all the relevant guys here. Is there anyone that kind of stuck out to you? Because I think the only guy here that kind of moved for me was Bryce Ford Wheaton. Wasn't on
Yeah, I
my
was gonna
board
say
at all.
we could talk about Bryce Ford Wheaton. He posted the highest RAS score out of all the receivers.
Yeah, just with a
It's like
4.38.
6'4".
Yeah, 6'4", 220, ran a 4.38. Just
Yeah, it's
testing
pretty
well.
incredible. But I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit just off the pod. But he's going to be 23 coming to the NFL. I think he played 4 or 5 full seasons of college.
Yeah.
It just makes me think too much about D. Eskridge, and I'm not. Or Velus Jones or any of the other 25-year-old fast players that have come into the NFL. So
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if he got high draft capital though,
Yeah, I mean, I could see a third to fourth
just
round
based
now,
on testing.
Yeah. But, I mean, if we want to talk about testing, let's move on to some of these tight ends because they.
Yeah, the tight ends. We talked about this in the tight end episode. The testing is what we are going to look at the most with tight ends.
Yeah. So, let's start off here with our top 3 guys. I think the first guy, Michael Mayer.
We knew he was going to test bad, though.
Yeah, didn't expect him to test well. So, doesn't really change anything for me. Still my one. Still think he's going to be a solid, surefire player. So, the real question was our next 2 guys here. And that would be your guy, Luke Musgrave, and my guy, Tucker Kraft.
Right, exactly.
And both of them came out, and they tested pretty well. So, I'm going to pull up Tucker Kraft's RAS score here.
Well.
And if you want to pull up Luke Musgrave's. But
I will say now, Musgrave ran a little bit slower than I had hoped, but he still posted a 9.95 RAS score. So he's still an incredible athlete.
Just in
Luke
terms
Musgrave,
of
4-sport athlete. Might take you a while to guess the sports because I think he did like skiing. Was one of them, I know. But
this is the face of a lacrosse guy for sure.
Lacrosse.
This
skiing,
is
football, and then there was a 4th sport as well.
You give me a picture of Luke Musgrave and tell me what sport I think he plays. Lacrosse
That's
is
true.
the first answer. Gun to my head, I'm saying lacrosse for this guy. He's the face
he
of
does
lacrosse.
100% look like a lacrosse player.
But I think
he ran track as well. So track, skiing, lacrosse, and football.
Yeah. So, I mean, he came in 6'6", 253. So I like the measurements there. Ran a 4.61, which is fine. I mean, we expected
very good for a tight end.
I think the problem is there were a lot of guys that we came in here talking about them being these track guys and how fast they were going to run.
Yeah.
And then none of those guys, measured up to it. And now all of a sudden these
like 4.61, that's so slow. But no, that's a 9.31 for tight ends. That's
that's very fast. So listen, I think that's fine. I really liked what I saw out of Luke Musgrave, and I told you that I was gonna use the combine to determine how a fair amount because we didn't get to see a lot of tape on Luke Musgrave, and he did move to my 3 above Dalton Kincaid. So I liked what I saw out of Luke Musgrave, but you know who I liked more, Sam? I still like my guy Tucker Kraft.
He tested very well as well.
A 9.58 RAS. He's got a 40-yard dash of 4.69, which I'll take.
Still very good. Very good. And I didn't see speed. His speed was not part of his game on tape,
Yeah. So,
I mean... physicality and yards after the catch.
I would be lying to you if I told you I thought he was going to run that fast. I thought he was going to run a little
Yeah,
bit
like
slower than
even at
that.
4.69. That's true. He
He
looks slow on tape, honestly.
he did come in at 6'5", 254, so I don't know if that's going to be. He might have
A little
played a little
smaller.
bit heavier than that. He might have came in a little lighter to run faster, but overall, really good broad jump. His vert is it's okay. Um, monster on the bench. Love to see those tight ends benching. But
Oh yeah.
just overall, I think just another solid player that I just his testing kind of affirmed to me. I don't think he's going to move at all for me, and just I'm excited to try and get him in all of the mid third round
I'm
drafts that
just
I'm
glad we
in.
don't have the same guy.
Exactly. You've got your
I'm
guy, I've
glad
got
we're not
mine. We
fighting
don't
for
we
the
don't have to
same tight
fight.
end. Yeah.
We're already going to be fighting
Thank
enough with
goodness.
Marvin Mims and Tank Bigsby in the second. We're going to be
Oh God, I know.
it's going to
Like
be a
we're
bloodbath with
both
me and
so
you.
zeroed
It's
in on those two guys that it's
so
like that's tough. That's tough.
exactly. But all right. So our next tier here is another guy that moved up for me a fair amount, and that's Darnell Washington and Dalton Kincaid. And we didn't see anything out of Kincaid, which a little
Yeah,
unfortunate.
he didn't really test. I might have moved him up if he had tested well. I was hoping to see him test, but
Yeah, and that's the only if he came out and also tested well, I probably would have kept him above Musgrave. But just I really liked what I saw. I think you're getting a lot of NFL buzz out of Musgrave too. A
absolutely.
lot of teams just talking about how they really like him. But Darnell Washington, man, I think this is just one of the guys that stole the show at the combine. It's just
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I still don't know what to do with him because it's like he's such a freak that he literally isn't. I mean, we talked about it. He's an extra lineman. I mean, I've heard rumors that teams might switch him to tackle because, like, with his frame, I mean, there's a question that could he put on 50 more pounds onto that frame? Like, he's honestly a little bit lean for how big he is.
and
Um,
you know what? That's one of the bigger things. I'll just say this. I was happy he came in. The measurement for him is 6'7" here. I think the official measurement that floated around was like 6'6" and 3/4 or something. Now it says 6'7". Zach
yeah,
Kuntz measured in at
six
like
six and a half is what I see on your
yeah.
mass. Yeah,
So Zach Kuntz measured in at
264.
6'7", and they took a picture together, and Darnell Washington just looked taller than him. So I don't know what was going on with the measurements there, but he came in at 264, which is a little bit lighter than what I thought. Thought he was going to come in above 270, maybe even treading close to the 280s. But whether or not he's going to put that back on, I don't know. But I think it's a little bit closer to what the prototypical size of a tight end is.
Yeah.
And Sam, I mean, if you guys haven't seen this catch by now, go look
Oh
up
yeah,
the
it's
Darnell
ridiculous.
Washington combine catch, because this is just a one-handed, kind of almost behind the back, just flicking his wrist and just catching it like a robot, essentially. And I mean, that was just crazy. That alone has got to be moving up
There's a
one
good
tight end
chance
spot.
that we are both way wrong on him, and that he's just going to be like the next Rob Gronkowski. There's a chance.
There's nothing I want more than Darnell Washington, the human being, to succeed in the NFL. I would
Absolutely.
love
I cannot
nothing
agree
more
more.
than to see a full
I mean,
12-year career of the behemoth,
oh,
6'7",
absolutely.
270-pound Darnell
But
Washington.
we both love Darnell Washington. We're just trying to be realistic about. I mean, I've just heard so much buzz about him blocking, being used as an extra tackle,
Yeah, it's.
etc. That I'm just concerned he's not going to be used a ton in the passing game.
I just want to. I want him to get drafted to a place, and then I just want that coach to come out and say, "We hate blocking. Let's throw." So it's just. But in all
But I mean, the
seriousness,
spot he's getting mocked is like the Bengals, for
the
example. And it's like, yeah,
Bengals,
he'll be a great weapon
the
for the Bengals, but they need O-line help.
the
They're
Bengals, the
drafting him for
Lions in
O-line
the
help.
second, who just are a run first team that they love mauling it. So if he goes to one of these mauler teams, it's going to be interesting where he goes, because it's really
Yeah.
up in the air right now. And I love the player. I think the talent is good. just
If
think
he
some of
goes to
these
the
other
right spot,
guys.
he could easily jump from like 4 to 1 on my board though.
Yeah, it's possible.
So
You know.
it'll be interesting to see. Um, yeah. What about any of the? We got two. Oh yeah, we got this last tier here. Sam Laporta, I think, just saw what you needed to see from Sam Laporta. Great testing.
Yeah.
You know, uh, obviously, I think we've talked a lot about him in our tight end episode. Nothing really changed, in my opinion, for him. But and you had Zach Kuntz on your board even before the combine. So I'll let you start off talking about Zach Kuntz and
Kuntz
what he
was
did.
my number 8 tight end on my board before when we were doing our tight end rankings, and now he is boosted up to number 7. So not a whole lot of movement, just because I think that capital's still not going to be there. But he's moved ahead of Davis Allen, who didn't test as well. But I mean, Zach Kuntz is a guy who number 1 out of 1,020 tight ends from 1987 in Raz. Perfect 10. He came in at 6'7". Let me get the exact measurements because I don't want to get this wrong, because this is just an unbelievable freak athlete. And like
Zach Kuntz, I think somebody like Jelani Woods last year who got himself drafted at the combine.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
got himself, into a good draft capital. I think he might have gone already.
So
But
6'7", 255 pounds. He ran a 4.55. He ran at 6'7",
faster than Tank Bigsby.
Almost faster than Tank Dell.
Oh my god.
0.04 seconds slower than Tank Dell, the 5'8", 160-pound receiver. So that's crazy. The 20-yard split, 10-yard split, both unbelievable. His shuttle and his 3-cone are both, 95th and 96th percentile. 40-inch broad jump, 10.8, or 40-inch vert, 10.8 broad jump. So I just all around, this guy just broke testing at the combine. So if that can kind of skyrocket him into a 4th-round pick, like Jelani Woods was a 3rd-round pick. So if he can get something in the 4th to a team that doesn't have a tight end, like if he goes to the Lions, and this guy's a receiving tight end. He's not really going to be your blocking guy.
I don't think I saw him. I haven't watched any film, but I heard just from reading about him that there's zero film of him lining up in line as a tight end.
Yeah.
Just a big receiver essentially.
But I mean, in all fairness, if you've got a 6'7" tight end that can run a 4.55, how much times do you want to line up? So
just run him out there.
But yeah, this is the guy that I liked, and I think he tested well. I think the only other guy here that Davis Allen didn't test as well for me. I was kind of getting a little hyped on him when I started watching. Haven't watched too much still, but he's fallen a little bit. Are there any other guys out here? I know you liked Schoonmaker.
Yeah, I thought Schoonmaker tested very well. I kind of liked him a little bit before the start of the combine as well, just because of his performance at the Senior Bowl. So he's still, but Schoonmaker for me is more somebody I love the Texans to take in the 5th or 6th round versus somebody I want on my fantasy team.
Yeah, that's fair. And then I think just 2 other guys to mention quickly here, because I don't even know how much more we'll talk about him for the rest of this draft season, because I think once you kind of get past these, 8, 9 tight ends, I'm not really too interested. I think these are going to be waiver wire pickups after your draft. But Will Mallory did have a good showing at the combine. And then I think Brenton Strange was another guy that just, whenever I was watching him during the drills, he just looked good. So kind of popped. So just keep an eye out on those guys. Cameron Latu fell. He didn't test, so don't really know what to think about him. He was a guy that I had around like that 9 spot, maybe breaking into the cusp, but he's fallen because he just hasn't tested. We'll see if he does anything at his pro day. But that's about it here now for us, Sam. That's kind of what we thought about the combine. It was a nice little way to get some information here about these guys. And, like we said, pro days are coming around. We'll still get some more information on that. We'll keep you posted. Next week, big free agency weekend about to kick off.
Oh yeah.
Already got some news going, as we talked about at the beginning of the show. But we're rolling into the where will Aaron Rodgers go? Where are all these receivers that no one wants going to get signed? Is Saquon Barkley going somewhere else? We'll figure all that out pretty soon. But
Before we jump off, on that note, do you want to chime in on the Ian Rappaport report that the Lamar Jackson is almost definitely going to be tagged?
Yeah, I think tomorrow is the last day.
It broke during the episode that he will be tagged.
Yeah, so I think tomorrow is the last day to tag, right? So I just wasn't expecting anything to get done.
Yeah.
So
in 2 days.
Yeah, so they're gonna
and
tag.
Your opinion is he won't play in the tag.
That's my opinion. I think.
You think they'll give him the unrestricted tag, let somebody or come in and offer him?
Yeah, so Ian Rappaport went on the Pat McAfee show earlier today and was talking about how, he said if he was the Ravens, he would use the non-exclusive tag.
Yeah, then you at least get a comp pick, I guess.
Yeah, so, and it's because what he said is that there hasn't been severe interest from other teams, which I just don't know how, there wouldn't be severe interest from other teams, but you know what? He's the insider, so that's just what he said. I don't know, how much stock to put into that, but I just want it over, Sam. I just want this to be done. I don't want to go on Twitter every day and just have, all these groups of Ravens Twitter arguing about, what to do and just bashing the front office and the GM. I've just had enough of it. I just want to be done, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. Hopefully by next week there'll be some clarity.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for us here today. Thank you guys for sitting through this episode with us. And wherever you are listening from, whether that's Spotify, Apple, YouTube, leave a like, follow, subscribe, do all that fun stuff for us. It really helps us grow and try and get a nice tight-knit community of people who enjoy this type of Dynasty content. So that's going to do it for us here today. Thanks for watching and peace out.